Actor and director Orson Welles is widely acclaimed as the creator of the 1941 film classic Citizen Kane. But another, less celebrated man deserves his due as well. His cause is a family affair for our man in Hollywood, Ben Mankiewicz.
It is arguably the most famous word ever spoken on film. And it comes from what many consider the greatest movie ever made. Citizen Kane, Orson Welles' 1941 masterpiece on the rise and fall of Charles Foster Kane.
I made no campaign promises.
A ruthless capitalist, mostly based on newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst.
I felt like a kid in front of a candy store. Well, tonight, 6 years later, I got my candy, all of it. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Inquirer.
With its deep focus camera work and bold lighting techniques that use shadows to direct the audience's attention, Citizen Kane is a cinematic landmark. So it's only fitting that the story behind it is equally compelling. And that's the story director David Fincher tells in his new Netflix film. I spoke to Fincher on Stage 19 at Paramount Studios. It's where Welles made Citizen Kane 80 years ago.
When you look at a movie that is cohesive, as Kane was, from the authorship standpoint, it fires on all cylinders.
Fincher's film is called Mank.
Make yourself to home, Mr. Mankiewicz, or shall I call you Herman?
Please, call me Mank.
Mank.
Mank. Mank.
Mank?
Oscar winner Gary Oldman stars as Herman Mankiewicz, who Welles hired to write the screenplay for Kane.
Mank, it's Orson Welles.
Of course it is.
Full disclosure, Herman Mankiewicz was my grandfather. For all that I know and all that my father knew about his dad, you captured Herman completely authentically.
Well, that's a great thing to hear.
Fincher's resume includes Fight Club.
Did you kill your wife, Nick?
Gone Girl.
This idea is potentially worth millions of dollars.
Million! And The Social Network. So a black and white period piece about someone most people have never heard of seems a curious choice. What was the pull of late 30s, early 40s Hollywood?
It wasn't. It was the character. It was the guy. It was the notion of someone struggling with great ability and personal troubles, and his pushing a rock up a hill in gravel.
My grandfather was definitely a character. Everybody called him Mank. Talented and tormented, he was the smartest and wittiest guy in the room, also the drunkest. His career was at a low point when he met Orson Welles, who was soaring.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
3 years before Kane, Welles's radio broadcast of War of the Worlds scared thousands into believing Martians had invaded New Jersey.
Strike them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames.
Welles was a genius, and he knew it. So did Hollywood. At just 24, Welles was given carte blanche to make any movie he wanted. So he went to my grandfather, who had an idea. Take on the original media mogul, William Randolph Hearst. Herman had been to parties thrown by Hearst, bearing witness to the wild excesses.
What's interesting to me is the notion of a guy who had overheard a lot of things and had a really specific understanding of the world that he was pulling the curtain back from.
If I may be so bold, why Hearst? Are you going to say anything? You pick a fight with Willie. You are finished.
In Citizen Kane, Herman Mankiewicz revealed how men like Hearst used their power to manipulate people and crush dissent.
Really, Charles? People will think
What I tell them to think.
Fincher recreated Hearst Castle by blending vintage photographs with digital effects. There's a great shot of Gary Oldman as my grandfather coming out, looking for Marion.
It was a set about as big as, it was like 20 by 20 foot, just the doorway, and then the rest of it's matte paintings. Quite honestly, exactly the way Welles would have done it.
Nobody but better will your Randolph Hearst.
That's a scene with Mank and Marion Davies, a movie star who everybody knew was Hearst's mistress. She's played by Amanda Seyfried.
It's amazing. It really reconnects me to this story.
We spoke to her outside the Manhattan mansion Hearst bought for Davies.
I think the perception was that she was just not that bright, a comedienne, really a very flighty young woman. She was actually so much smarter than people gave her credit for.
When one is dancing in a Broadway hit, one gets so tired of dancing.
You didn't get so tired when you danced over me all night.
That's because I dance on my toes now. I was dancing on a heel then.
Much more talented, very self-assured. She's someone I would have gotten along with really well.
For Amanda Seyfried, who has starred in Mean Girls and Mamma Mia, a black and white film set during Hollywood's golden age was a welcome change of pace.
It's a really great way to just go back in time and experience an era that we weren't a part of.
The debate over who wrote Citizen Kane has been raging for decades. My grandfather wrote a long first draft. Welles condensed it. They shared the film's only Academy Award, the Oscar for Best Screenplay. But it's not the credit that matters to Fincher. It's the collaboration.
I was interested in watching how these extremely different personalities collided with one another for one moment in time and made something that we still talk about today.
Mank. Mr. Mankiewicz.
While my link to Fincher's film is obvious, there is also another family connection. You're watching the titles of this movie, a screenplay by, what's it say?
Jack Fincher.
Jack Fincher was David Fincher's father.
He was a journalist most of his life, which is why his assessment of the only good movies are written by and or about journalists. I was sort of indoctrinated with that from a very early age.
David Fincher is not given to sentimentality, but it was clearly special for him to finish what his dad started 25 years ago.
I wish he could have seen it get made before, 9 months of chemo, but it didn't happen.
Jack Fincher died in 2003.
And we're left with this, and it is nice to come full circle.
There's a circle completed for me, too. I love seeing my grandfather's name on Citizen Kane, but I never knew him. He died in 1953, long before I was born.
You're not going to like this, Orson.
But through Fincher and Gary Oldman,
I want credit.
I feel like I'm getting a little taste of the real Herman Mankiewicz. My father would have been very, very pleased to see that you created his dad as someone that just about everybody would have wanted to be around.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He's a mensch.